one. I just knocked him on my camera. I'm picking it up. Sorry about that.
Hi, so my SD card just decided to be a little silly and delete my entire intro for this video. I've been having some problems with it. This is my sign to get a new one, so entirely my fault. It said that the SD card was suddenly not in my camera in the middle of me filming the intro. I should have refilmed it. But in last year's holiday special, I talked about the movie Grandma Got Ran Over by a Reindeer, and at the beginning of that video, I mentioned a Christmas special titled Olive the Other Reindeer. So I had it kind of in the back of my mind this year when I was thinking of like a holiday video idea, but ultimately I left it up to you guys, and you guys did select Olive the Other Reindeer on the community page. Basically, Olive the Other Reindeer was a 3D animated Christmas special written by Steve Young that came out on December 17th, 1999. Similar to last year's video in which the movie was based off the song Grandma Got Ran Over by a Reindeer, Olive the Other Reindeer was actually based off a children's book of the same name by J. Otto and Vivian Walsh that was published in 1997. I only mention the book because there are some significant changes from what we see in the movie, like Olive doesn't have a pet flea or have a clever sidekick by her side, but most importantly, Olive, there's no villain chasing after Olive like there is in the movie. Funny enough, it wasn't until looking into this movie and finding out that I realized that I think all the memory that I've had of this movie was actually memory of the story in the book. So I thought the story in the movie was also what happens in the book, verbatim. I know for a fact I've seen this movie at least once or twice. I have very fuzzy, fever dreamy memories of it. Could I tell you what happens? Well, no, it was before I was conscious, okay? And I'm sorry, I didn't get to choose when I became conscious. It's not my fault. But we're here to fix that today and dive into Olive the Reindeer together. Hope you guys enjoy. Let's get into the video. This story starts off with a small musical number from Olive herself, who is actually voiced by Drew Barrymore. A number maybe is pushing it because the song is pretty short, but basically it's about how she loves other holidays but loves Christmas time most of all. It's also very clear that she is in the Christmas spirit because she gives this mouse family this makeshift Christmas tree because they're struggling due to the fact that normal Christmas trees are way too big for them, but she does this for them for free, and then she skips away all excitedly for what's to come next. After this, we meet this penguin named Martini who's selling Rolexes for $10 on the street, and when Olive is having a conversation with him, she ends up noticing these city zoo flyers, I think, in his suitcase, which at first he denies working for, but then he goes on this emotional tangent about how he was fired, which I'm pretty sure was just to get Olive to buy something, because right after he ends up lowering the price to $9. Shortly after, this policeman walks up to the two of them and says he's warned Martini before to stop selling counterfeit watches, but he basically pivots his plan of trying to get Olive to buy something to say that he was giving them all to Olive as a Christmas gift.
I was giving them as a Christmas gift to my dear old friend Olive.
And Olive actually goes along with this, helping him cover. And even afterwards, when he's wow, thanks, you did that for me, and asks her to buy a watch anyway, she does buy a watch, and this is once the cop is gone. After this, we meet Olive's owner for the first time. He's not in this movie a lot, but he is a prominent part of the plot.
Trust.
And he asks her the most peculiar thing. He asks if she's done any of her dog chores today, which I guess is just anything a typical dog would do, burying bones, tearing up flower beds, or barking uncontrollably, which makes Tim upset. It makes him upset that she's not barking uncontrollably. For some reason, she's well behaved.
How are your dog chores coming? Did you bury any bones today?
Her answer to that was obviously no, and so he tells her to get with the program and implies he wishes he had a normal dog. To which Olive is hey, we shouldn't be fighting during Christmas, because this is our favorite holiday. He reveals that there's going to be no Christmas this year. Following this conflict, we cut to Olive having a conversation with her pet flea, and they end up turning on the radio to make Olive feel better. But this is very important because this is how we find out basically that Santa is expected to cancel his annual Christmas Eve flight because one of the reindeers was injured earlier during practice and won't recover in time. We also hear a message from Santa on the radio where he says, hopefully they can just make do with all of the other reindeer. But her flea hears Olive the Other Reindeer, which is where the title of the movie comes into play. This is not in my script, but literally as I'm saying this movie name out loud, It's sounding like I'm saying Olive the Other Reindeer. That's not what I'm saying. Like, I read a comment, I watched the movie on YouTube, and someone was like, is it Olive or is it Olive? Now I understand the confusion, because I was like, well, no shit, it's Olive the Other Reindeer. No, literally, it sounds the same.
It sounds the same as I'm saying it out loud.
Unlike the book where Olive hears Olive the Other Reindeer, Olive thinks this is quite ridiculous, but her pet flea is really just truly convinced that, that could explain maybe why she doesn't act like the typical dog and doesn't like typical dog things. That this whole time, she could have really been just a reindeer. Shortly after they come to this realization, Tim comes up to Olive's doghouse and, apologizes to her because
he knows his behavior was out of pocket.
You didn't do anything wrong. Santa's not flying, and I took it out on you.
He took his emotions out on Olive unfairly, and he wants to make it known that, that was not okay. He's just really upset, down in the dumps about the whole Santa's flight possibly being canceled.
You always do everything wrong. Santa's not flying, and I shook a trout fondue.
But the two of them actually hide from Tim, so he doesn't even see Olive in there. And she asks oh, I don't know what he's saying. And the flea basically lies to her about what Tim is saying because Olive can't make out the words.
Olive, I came to apologize.
What did he say?
I think he said, I'm ashamed of all your lies.
And he knows Olive is the key to saving Christmas. Obviously, if she had heard this in the beginning, I don't think she would have tried to do anything. Part of her motivation throughout this whole movie is the fact that she thinks that Tim wants to get a new dog. Because that's what the flea told her.
We can still have Christmas. Come on in the house. I'm lighting the Yule log, and there's a space for you.
You can't kill my Christmas. Get out of this house. I'm getting a new dog. And I'm replacing you.
And after this, Olive goes on her way to try to figure out, how to get to the North Pole. Before anything happens, she runs into the postman. They literally run into each other. Who we got a glimpse of earlier when she was on her way to, unknowingly talk to Martini. She didn't plan to talk to Martini, but she sees him on the street. But anyway, as she's, skipping along to him, literally I thought he was gonna hit her with his car.
It's almost over! It's just hours away!
But fun fact about the postman, he's actually played by David Castellaneta, who, if you don't know, is the voice of Homer Simpson from The Simpsons. What? Genuinely, I would have never known this. I would have never guessed if I hadn't watched the documentary about the making of this movie. But he honestly does a phenomenal job as the postman in this movie, and I really enjoyed it. Anyway, luckily for Olive, he's in a good mood when they run into each other because, in his words, he has the no more Christmas spirit, which is because he hates Christmas. Because the holidays just make his job so much harder, basically, and he tells us this through a really catchy musical number.
I love the Christmas season. Christmas, Bob Buckenham.
That, I'm going to the North Pole to save Christmas, and that even he can have a Merry Christmas if he chooses. My first thought after, hearing this backstory is, why don't you just quit your job? Just get a job somewhere else if it's that overwhelming for you during the holidays. It seems like he's the only mailman in this town. Is he the only mailman in the world? Because he's delivering... he's clearly not happy at this job. I think some change. We need
some change here.
Olive then proceeds to head to the station and buy her ticket, but she comes across Martini again, who actually begs her to let him join her on this adventure, to which she reluctantly agrees because she'll have to pay for his ticket too. But it's when she's handing over the money that the postman attempts to kidnap her, claiming that she's committed some tax fraud.
What's all this about? She's wanted for several counts of mail fraud.
There's literally another policeman there, and he's like,
what's going on?
And then he just proceeds to do nothing. Is it because she's a dog? He's still taking her. Luckily, she calls out to Martini for help when he's going to just get on the bus without her. And she reminds him, I did a favor for you, please help. So he does. He ends up throwing these, pens on the floor. And so the postman ends up slipping and he drops Olive, and then Olive makes a run for it to the bus, and the bus immediately leaves. Because while this is happening, they announce on the speaker, hey, this is the last call for this bus to the North Pole, and this is also the very last bus of the night. So this really allows them to just escape in the nick of time to catch the last bus to the North Pole, which leaves before the postman can even get up and process what just happened to try to catch Olive again. Now that they're on the bus, Olive Olive ends up telling Martini all about her plan, and that she's heard Santa needed her help on the radio. But the bus driver, Richard Stans, who's played by Tim Meadow, chimes in that, she misheard what Santa said, which is actually originally what Olive said earlier, again, but like the flea really convinced her.
And I shook it. A trout fondue.
Richard also says that, it's okay because people mishear things all the time like that. He even thought the Pledge of Allegiance was about him, Richard Stans.
I'm afraid you just misunderstood. It happens all the time. I used to think the Pledge of Allegiance was about me, Richard Stans.
It's not?
Olive also talks to some passengers who live in the North Pole. They were on vacation, I guess, and they don't think she's a reindeer either because they've been around them, but she's still confident. Like, even if she really isn't a reindeer, she believes that she could save Christmas and that she's the key here. By this point, a while has passed, and we cut to the postman who's dangerously speeding on a busy road, and even shoves a truck off the road, who ends up like flipping and crashing into the forest to catch up with Olive's bus. And when he finally does, she tries to hide, but like he already saw her basically because he was trying to catch up with the bus. So Martini, he ends up pulling a paper plane out of his suitcase and he throws it at the postman and it lands in his ear, which causes him to completely swerve off the road. It could have like hit him in his face or his head, but his ear, that's what caused him to just like completely crash and burn. But despite this, when they finally reach Arctic Junction, the postman was still trickling behind them the whole time. So when they stop somewhere to get some food, he actually decides to get in some drag and act like he works at the place as a waitress and ends up taking their order.
I have one thing to say. You better work, bitch.
After taking their order, there's another radio update about Santa and how he has scheduled a press conference for 11 p.m. that same night. So it's suspected that he plans to cancel his flight for the first time ever, which makes the whole restaurant universally sad. So Olive gets on the table and says, not to worry guys, because I'll be saving Christmas, and that she's the other reindeer that Santa was talking about on the radio. To which she's met with complete silence.
Hey everybody, don't despair. I'm Olive, and I'm going to the North Pole to help Santa. I'm the other reindeer.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Richard even tried to start a chant, but nobody joined in, which was a hard watch. Not because it was cringe, but because it just made me really sad.
Olive, 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 Olive. Okay.
He's such a nice guy. Anyway, the postman then takes this as his opportunity to strike and try to trick Olive, saying,
oh, you're Olive? You're the other reindeer? Well, Santa's in the parking lot. He's been looking for you. He wants to give you a flying test.
Now, I know this is a kid's movie, but how did they just let her leave? By herself, with this random waitress, they just let her leave. I mean, the bus driver said it himself. Santa didn't actually say he needed Olive on the radio, so how do you know she's there? Or coming in the first place? But you get my point. Majorly suspicious things going on. They should not have let her leave. I'm surprised even Martini didn't come along to see. But shortly after they step outside, the postman actually reveals himself, taking off his wig and saying, Santa couldn't make it, and kidnaps her once again.
She slowly took off her wig, and she was completely bald. She then went on to tell me the most shocking thing ever.
Santa couldn't make it!
Luckily, it's not for too long because Olive ends up finding a package in the back of his truck addressed to her. So she opens it and it's a metal file that she ends up using to make her escape. On her way back to the restaurant, she actually sees the bus they needed to catch, but it didn't stop for her. Basically, they were going to need to catch a connecting bus. So Richard Stans wasn't going to be able to take them all the way to the North Pole. But they missed the bus. I say they because Martini ended up waiting back for Olive because he knew something was wrong. Even Richard waited, but he said unfortunately he can't take her up to the North Pole or his job could be at risk because he needs to get back to the station at a certain time, but he wishes her luck and says he very much believes in her. And he doesn't just immediately be hey, I can't take you guys. He wishes he could take them. And it's sad because I love him. This man is so nice. But he suggests that Martini and Olive head to the bar to ask for a ride, which is A weird place to ask for a ride. Why don't you go in the restaurant? You know, like, drive responsibly, please. Anyway, it's after this that Martini and Olive head to the bar, and they have quite a rude awakening, let's just say, when they run into a fellow reindeer. Olive obviously goes up and is like, hey, like, I'm Olive the Other Reindeer. I'm gonna save Christmas. So they ask, obviously, you know, can you fly? And, you know, Olive said yes. And then they end up throwing Olive around the bar, seeing if she could fly. And Martini is obviously like,
hey guys, knock it off.
This results in them trying to take Martini's briefcase. Are you kidding? And when Olive notices, this causes her to actually bark for once.
Watch it, pal. That's valuable merchandise. It's mine.
And then Olive gives this speech where she's like, hey guys, at least I'm actually trying to do something. Unlike you people who were gonna throw me off a roof. After this speech, the reindeer that was messing with her ends up apologizing, and we get our next musical number, which is all about, like, how times have really just been hard lately, and they aren't so bad.
I'm sorry, Olive. We're really not such a bad bunch.
He actually goes on to say they didn't take Olive seriously in the song because they thought she was pranking them or something. As stupid as that sounds, I can't even be mad because, like, this song is an absolute banger.
So forgive us if we all have attitudes. We're up a frozen creek. We're not so bad. We're not so bad. We're really sweet and funny. We're not so bad, except for that bunny.
So it was not surprising in the slightest to find out the guy playing the character is Michael Stipe. I was like, why does it sound so good? Michael, you ate that up. I don't know why this song was giving me like Shrek soundtrack vibes. That's how much I liked it, with a little more lyricism. Like, if it was longer.
Lyricism? Okay, Lula.
Anyway, after the song ends, the reindeer they met ends up saying that Round John Virgin, the other guy who was like messing around with them and throwing Olive around, can actually take them up to the gates of the North Pole, but then after that they'll have to be on their own. And the reindeer I've been talking about this whole time, the one that was messing with them, we find out at this point that his name is Schnitzel, and that he's Blitzen's cousin, who, get this, is flightless. All of that. Oh, you gave Olive such a hard time.
And you can't even fly.
The irony, like, he was projecting. And just like that, they're off. They actually sleep most of the way, but once they get there, Round John Virgin ends up apologizing for his behavior before they leave, and Martini actually ends up giving him some high-quality office supplies as a gift. They're really just city zoo envelopes. So I guess he didn't have flyers in his suitcase. They were actually envelopes. I could not tell. Anyway, they get to the North Pole and they go to security, and Olive basically says she's here to fill in for Blitzen, so maybe Schnitzel wasn't flightless after all. Like, was he, I don't know if he was talking about Blitzen or himself, like with the way he says it. I thought he was talking about himself.
We have Michael Stipe, who sings an amazing song and plays Schnitzel, who is flightless.
But the elf says, you know, her name isn't on the list, and Olive tells him, you know, Santa said on the radio he needed her help, as if we haven't established that he didn't say that, and even she herself knows he didn't say that. But like, I thought the point was like, I'm going to help regardless, even if he didn't say that, because I love this holiday and I believe I can save it. But the elf ultimately says he can't let her in, and frankly is unnecessarily mean about the whole thing, saying if she doesn't go back to where she came from, he'll have her arrested. Luckily, Martini has a plan though. He gives the elf one of his like counterfeit watches, but he puts it in a box and he says it's from Santa. The kicker is they don't really work. Like, we see this firsthand because, as I said, Olive bought one in the beginning of this movie. So he leaves a service repair number, of course, in the box. So the elf calls it, wanting him to obviously fix the watch because it's broken. So Martini shows up with his suitcase. As he's fixing it though, he makes up some excuse about, you know, electro waves, and tells the elf he'll need to turn off the electric fence, giving Olive time to sneak in and find Santa without getting like electrocuted or something, thanks to Martini, who saved the day. But it's at this point too that the postman decides to show up to the North Pole, and he says he's here to deliver children's letters to Santa, so obviously he gets let in like really easily. But it's here that we discover something that was hinted at earlier when Olive was in his mail truck that I understood like immediately. Basically, a lot of children's letters are mean to Santa, and Olive finds one like when she's in the back of the mail truck before opening the package that, you know, helped her escape, and she's just kind of like, well, that's odd.
Dear Santa, I hate you, and I hope you never come again. Stay home. Love, Bobby. That's strange.
So my theory from that point on was like, he's writing these letters himself. Because in this universe, everyone universally believes in Santa. He is canonically real. I mean, we hear him on the radio and see the universal disappointment for the cancellation of his flight before it even gets canceled. The idea of it getting canceled is distressing to people. Well, distressing to people and has people universally disappointed, all except one person. And one person only. The postman. The one delivering those letters. So Santa, Mrs. Claus, and the gang are all kind of huddled up, and he's like, oh, well, let's look at these letters. I'm gonna have to cancel my flight.
Dear Santa, I hate you. Don't come to my house. Johnny, dear Santa, lose some weight and get a real job.
And Santa's only a couple of letters into this like huge sack when Olive jumps in and informs him, you know, she believes they were written by that evil postman, pointing out that they don't even have post stamps on them. And then she tells Santa, you know, hey, I'm the reindeer you asked for on the radio, which he has no idea what she's talking about. But nevertheless, he's very happy that she's here and is willing to give her a chance regardless to help save Christmas. Shortly after this, the news is reporting this information, and Martini actually gets his moment to shine, telling them like all about Olive, which ends up reaching her pet flea back home. Now, they didn't really give Olive like a proper flying test per se. They kind of just like went off on their way in hopes that it would work out, which although I was a little scared for Olive in the beginning, she definitely got the hang of it. But there's one thing that everyone has yet to realize, though everything seemingly like worked out, that the postman unfortunately was still going to win because he took the presents. Also, he kidnapped Martini for like no reason. I guess it's because he was on the news. And he even tied him up and taped his beak shut. There is just no justification for this behavior. Like, we get you hate Christmas, but animal abuse? You cannot stoop lower than this. While Martini is tied up though, the postman actually digs through the bag of toys to find his train set that apparently should have been his when he was a kid. And he says that that was the year that Santa started putting him on the naughty list. Remember when I said it was a little odd that like he didn't just quit his job? Safe to say, that's not truly why he hates Christmas. Like, there's some underlying trauma of some sort here. Shortly after this, we cut to the gang arriving at the first house, only to discover that the sack is full of junk mail, which Olive sniffs and immediately confirms it was definitely the postman who did this, if it wasn't obvious already. So, Olive tells everyone to head north, and sooner or later she'll pick up the scent, because she figures he'll be heading back in the direction of home. Olive does pick up the scent and they find, you know, his car on the road. And Santa, like, he starts, like, trying to land the sleigh on his car, which is, it's like attacking the sleigh. He's attacking his car with the sleigh, if that makes sense. Olive then tries to, like, get the postman to give the presents back, like, spy mission style? Action movie style. I don't know, like, I can't make a reference. I don't watch those type of movies. But basically, Olive is trying to get the postman to give the presents back, which ultimately fails. But the whole time this is happening, we cut to Martini in the back, who's trying to wind up this Jack-in-the-Box to scare the postman, which ends up working, causing him to faint, and then his car to go flying into the snow. Luckily with this, they're able to secure the presents, and of course, free Martini, who they didn't even realize was kidnapped, as well as tie up the postman while he was out, so that way he can be stopped for good. Clearly there's no redeeming this man. Unfortunately, Martini can't come with them because Comet said in his words, no hitchhikers on the sleigh, but he's okay with that. He wishes Olive luck, honestly, and says not to worry about him. Olive's even able to pick up some extra cardboard from, you know, the mail car to use as some makeshift wings, which helps her significantly because now they have to go like twice as fast because they're falling behind schedule because they just had to like divot and, you know, chase after the presents because they didn't have any presents. It's at this point we get our last musical number, and it's all about Olive and how she may not be a reindeer, but she was able to help save Christmas and get the gang to start believing in the Christmas spirit again, just when things really seem to be hopeless. During this song, we also get a montage of Olive, Santa, and the other reindeers flying all around the world to places like London, Sydney, Rome, Tokyo, and Paris. They even show a bunch of flags like from around the world during this montage too, to of course represent that they went to so many more places than just the few we saw. And we also cut to Martini during this, who successfully drove the postman's car all the way back home. And for some reason, when he's driving, he's in the town again, there's just monkeys in the street.
Great for zoo monkeys.
Even after running behind schedule though, it's revealed that they successfully delivered all the presents, and they of course give a big special thanks to Olive. On their way home, they get stuck in like some Arctic fog, and something I forgot to mention earlier is in this universe there's actually no Rudolph. Apparently, according to Comet, that's just some urban legend. So when they get stuck in this fog, instead of like Rudolph helping them per se, they have Olive sniff their way out of the fog to get them home, and Santa even tells her Mrs. Claus has made cookies, so she's able to smell out those cookies. Shortly after they arrive home, not only does Blitzen thank Olive for filling in for him, but Santa announces that he is going to be giving presents to the staff and crew. This is not important, but a really funny scene that happens right before this like emotional send-off for Olive is, you know, they're in line obviously getting their gifts from Santa. There's like a reindeer who got a jump rope.
And behind him is this elf, and the elf...
Both. From an insurance point of view, the jump rope's probably not a wise idea.
It just like took me out. Anyway, Olive finally gets her gift from Santa, and it's actually a pair of her very own reindeer antlers. So with that, Olive, you know, thanks everyone once again, admitting, you know, she knows she's not actually a reindeer, but she was very glad she got to help anyway and that they gave her a chance. And then she announces that she wishes she could stay, but she has a family to get home to. So Comet quickly finishes his cappuccino and then gives her a lift home.
I thought so. Let me finish my cappuccino and I'll give you a lift.
She was actually invited to the reindeer games, celebratory reindeer games they do after, but she ended up declining because she wanted to go back and see Tim. Oh, and I forgot to mention, Santa is actually voiced by the one and only Ed Asner. Anyway, after this we cut to Martini returning to the city zoo, where the animals greet him all excitedly because he helped save Christmas. His old boss even came up and offered him his old job back, like saying the business has been tough ever since the monkeys escaped. Thanks for the context. Would have been nice like 5 minutes ago. Luckily, he declines, which I was hoping for. After he drives back from the North Pole and, you know, he's in town again, he makes this comment. He has a realization where he's like, well, I guess I could deliver this mail.
I guess I could deliver this stuff. It's not as glamorous as helping Santa.
And that ends up being his new business pursuit. But he tells his boss not to worry because he has an even better penguin he can bring to the zoo. This penguin being the postman himself, tied up. I don't know why. Well, no, I do know why. This scene immediately reminded me of the end of the movie Tusk, you know, where the guy gets turned into a walrus, like
surgically with his own skin, he's turned into a walrus.
Anyway, at the end of the movie, he's actually like put in some exhibit because he's literally become a walrus.
You don't have to hide from us, Wallace.
Wallace! And like his old friends come and visit him, and it's just giving that to me. I just immediately thought of Tusk. Anyway, this movie actually ends with Tim picking up the morning paper where he sees Olive on the front page, and it's all about how she saved Christmas. At the very same time, Olive then arrives home, and oh my gosh, Tim is just so excited that she's back. He was incredibly worried about her and hopes that she can obviously forgive him, and he gives her a good old belly scratch. They never even address the, like, you know, him getting a new dog. So the flea got away with his lie.
And I shook it. A trout fondue.
After this, we get like a closing montage, which starts with Olive getting opposable thumbs for Christmas. That easily might be the funniest joke in this movie. And then after, we see the boss or president of the post office giving Martini his own mail uniform. And of course, we see the postman in the zoo getting a present from his fellow zoo mates, which is a box full of fish, which it makes him happy, actually. Tim even gets some slippers, you know, but of course he gets Olive back too, which is way more important. We then get the same song we opened up with Olive singing about how she loves the other holidays, but Christmas has to be her favorite, and most importantly, Round John Virgin gets his drill. Basically, it's said multiple times that, like, Round John Virgin wants a, like, drill. Like, when the postman is digging through the toys, he's like, oh, wow, the toys. and a drill. And that was Olive the Other Reindeer. Although I went into this not remembering anything whatsoever about this movie since, you know, I watched it before I was conscious, it was shockingly very heartwarming. I love the story. It is so simple yet so effective. The music is also amazing. I didn't even realize there was music in this movie. As someone who used to hate musicals growing up, don't worry guys, I've healed. I'm not like that anymore. But as someone who used to not like musicals as much, I like how they spaced out the songs in this movie. Like, it wasn't like you were being bombarded with song after song every few minutes. So I can tell why I enjoyed this, because it was a good amount. But most important of all, I loved the animation. There's a lot of early animation that's like uncanny and can be difficult to watch, but this was such a treat. I like the 3D-ness of the world. Like, it was such a good creative choice. It reminds me of like Papa Rapper the Rapper, if that makes sense. I just find it very charming. I did watch a bit of the Making of Olive the Reindeer documentary, which I briefly mentioned earlier, and Matt, who produced the movie, talked about the reason that they did this kind of style was to stay true to the book because it's a very beautiful style. Like, they really liked it, but it's very flat, so they did this like 3D thing, and I think it turned out really cool. And I'm really glad they went with that. But yeah, like, I think it's safe to say that this is going to become an annual rewatch for me. Truly, like, the perfect, wholesome, cozy Christmas movie for this time of the year. And with that, that's it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and let me know in the comments, like, what memories you have associated with this movie, or like your general opinions. Happy holidays, and I will see you guys in my very next video.
We're not so bad, we're not so fearful. Once you get to know us, we're downright cheerful.